are the most famous opening notes in all of music? Right. You recognize that, of course. And how about this version? That's the opening of Beethoven's Fifth on drums. And it was played by the BBC as a symbol of victory virtually throughout the Second World War. And it's a curious and a wonderful coincidence that Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, which premiered on December 22nd of 1808, conducted by Beethoven. There's a whole bunch of his music that premiered there, including a piano piece he played himself and two of his symphonies. Oh, I've written 2 symphonies. What have you been up to lately? However, if we can't write symphonies, we can find inspiration in other ways. And it was a Belgian who was working for the BBC in July of 1941 who came up with the idea of V's for victory. And the idea was that people would go and just scrawl V's all over Europe and unsettle the Nazis. And he picked V partly because it stood for victory in English, victoire in French, and also the word for freedom in Flemish, which I absolutely and completely cannot pronounce. But shortly after he came up with this idea, it was a broadcaster with the BBC who went on the air under the pseudonym of Colonel Britain, his name was actually Douglas Ritchie, who noticed that the opening notes of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony actually beat out the Morse code symbol for V. And what's more, because it's the Fifth Symphony, and you number symphonies with Roman numerals, it's the V Symphony. And this all came together to create this incredibly powerful emblem, which I think is an added twist, is using a German composer to reproach the Germans for having entirely lost hold of civilization in turning to the Nazis. And I should note as a side, of course, that the German word for victory does not begin with V. It's Sieg, as in Sieg Heil, as in Hitler, Nazism, and everything that the civilized world was fighting against. I'm not going to suggest to you that Beethoven's Fifth Symphony won the war. Obviously it didn't. An enormous number of things contributed to Allied victory, including such good fortune, or at least victory against improbably long odds, that one is tempted to discern the hand of fate or even of God in the Allied victory. Certainly that all this stuff would come together, this marvelous piece of music, this absolutely memorable tune that would radiate V's at the Nazis from every direction, uplift the spirits, inspire people, and then trains going through Europe would just go doot, 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 doot with their steam whistle. There were all kinds of small ways in which people could maintain their courage and their hope and annoy the Nazis. A hazardous activity, but you didn't always have to be caught doing it. That this should happen, if it is pure coincidence, it is proof that life is capable of yielding wonderful coincidences. Even so, it's a sign of hope. A kind of touch of the transcendent at a moment when it's most needed. All this stuff, of course, was noticed many years after it was premiered. None of it was planned, but it did all come together in such a way that V still stands for victory. And if you want my opinion, and if you've listened this far, I guess you do want my opinion, it sure beats the modern world's V for vendetta. So remember Beethoven's Fifth. Remember the Allied victory in World War II. Remember the capacity of people not to give up hope, even when things look incredibly bleak. And remember also the astounding creativity of which people are capable, so that Beethoven, at the age of 38, could premiere 6 pieces of music that he'd written, including 2 symphonies, on one day. That's December 2nd of 1808, a gift that kept on giving. If you're enjoying these commentaries, please come to my website, that's www.johnrobson.ca, make a monthly Patreon pledge to help me continue my work, and also, of course, continue to subscribe to The Rebel and continue to back The Rebel.